Harvard has kind of an amazing new study out on attitudes toward immigration, and it shows that African-American voters are among the most conservative on this. 85% of black voters polled by Harvard said you should not be allowed to come to the United States unless you are bringing skills or money with you. That's considered a fringe view in Washington. Why is this not better known, these views?
It's not better known because there's a political imperative in making sure that this kind of information is not gotten out there. If you take a look at all of the studies that show who is affected most in an adverse way by illegal immigration, without question and by far it's black Americans, particularly black males. 40% of the 18-point decline in black employment levels is due to illegal immigration. We're talking, if you do the math, of over 1 million people who don't have jobs because of illegal immigration and the competition that comes from that. But it goes beyond simply the economic aspect of this, which is devastating. We're talking about family formation issues, incarceration issues. Yes. But to take California, for example, it's very difficult to get this kind of data because public officials guard this data more tenaciously than nuclear launch codes. But trying to get crime data on illegal immigrants, and we've done it. We've spent a copious amount of time laboriously disaggregating information. There's at least 2,430 illegal aliens in California prisons today due to murder. John Lott has done a study showing that illegal aliens, and especially DACA-age illegal aliens, are 245% more likely to commit all manner of crimes than our lawful residents. That kind of statistic we've looked at the Civil Rights Commission. My assistant and I and special counsel have looked at this kind of information and have seen that on average, we're talking about the states where we can find this data, mainly the bigger states like New York, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and California. We're looking at least 60% more likely, if you're an illegal immigrant, to have committed a crime of any nature, but many of those crimes are of the most horrific nature, than our lawful residents. This visits horrific implications upon those vulnerable communities. One of those communities is the black community.
Well, and you'd think we would have a debate about it. Travis Allen, are these figures discussed at all in the state of California by your media there?
You know, unfortunately, they are not. You know, they're entirely overlooked, and everyone is trying to make this about immigration, when what we're really talking about is illegal immigration. And, you know, in California, we've got the sanctuary state, so this is not even people that have come here illegally. This is people who have come here illegally and then are committing crimes while they're here, and then they're being paid for and defended with taxpayer dollars. And then now, on top of this, I mean, really, as if that wasn't enough, now Xavier Becerra is threatening every California business owner. Again, you know, if you try to comply with federal law, if you comply with federal authorities doing their constitutional duty, he is going to prosecute you under California law. We're talking criminal prosecution, fines of $10,000 or potentially even more. And this is how far it's gone in California.
It's grotesque.
The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights was established pursuant to the 1957 Civil Rights Act to, among other things, examine matters related to discrimination and denials of equal protection. And because immigration very often implicates matters pertaining to national origin and race, the Commission has conducted several hearings over the years on various aspects of immigration, particularly illegal immigration. In fact, this year we're once again examining the effect of illegal immigration on black wage and employment levels. And Dr. Borjas talked about the group that is most isolated, most affected by it. And the evidence that we adduced before the Commission shows that among those groups are black Americans. This year, again, as I said, we'll be examining that, but one of our most recent hearings was on the effect of illegal immigration on black wage and employment levels. And the evidence that we gathered shows that unequivocally the wage and employment levels of black Americans are disproportionately adversely affected by illegal immigration, particularly when it pertains to the effect on black males. It should be noted, I think, that the witnesses that appear before the Commission were experts and scholars on immigration that spanned the ideological spectrum. And while they may have disagreed with respect to policy and maybe matters of degree, every single witness before the Commission agreed that illegal immigration has a decidedly negative impact on the wage and employment levels of black Americans, particularly black males. And the evidence shows that the reason for this is actually pretty basic. Black Americans, especially black males, are disproportionately concentrated in the low-skill labor market and are disproportionately more likely to have no more than a high school diploma. Likewise, illegal immigrants, disproportionately concentrated in the low-skilled labor market, disproportionately more likely to have low levels of academic achievement, and these two groups compete with one another in the low-skilled labor market. The competition is often most fierce in those industries in which blacks have traditionally and historically had high concentrations of employment, such as hospitality, service, construction, agriculture, and blacks very often lose out in this competition to illegal immigrants for a variety of reasons that are self-evident. Certain employers prefer to hire illegal immigrants. As Professor Vernon Briggs of Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations noted, it's not because low-skilled American workers, regardless of race, are unwilling to perform such jobs. It's that they're unwilling to do such jobs at the cut-rate wages and sometimes substandard working conditions tendered to illegal immigrants, a cohort which is unlikely, highly unlikely, to then go and complain about those conditions to OSHA, EEOC, or the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor. And we see that this competition is most pronounced in large metropolitan areas. The effect, the deleterious effect of illegal immigration on the low-skilled American worker is most severe during the current economic stagnant times. Since the beginning of the 2008 recession, there has been an increase of 2 million working-age blacks in the population. However, during the same period of time, the number of blacks currently in the workforce was also 2 million less, so that there's been no net increase in the number of employed blacks, despite a substantial increase in the black population. And what's curious about that, though, is during the same period of time, 4.4 million more foreign-born workers were employed in the United States. And this has substantial negative sociological implications also. Unemployment is linked to higher incarceration rates. Both are linked to lower levels of family formation. Indeed, research shows that immigration accounts for 40% of the 18-point percentage decline in black employment levels in the last several years. An 18-point decline is hundreds of thousands of blacks without jobs. In addition to depressing black employment levels, the evidence that we adduced shows that illegal immigration, frankly, any low-skilled immigration, tends to drive down the wages of jobs that are available for black Americans. One study, in addition to studies that we've reviewed from Dr. Borjas, an economist from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta showed that for the increase in the undocumented worker population, there has been a $960 reduction in the wages of the average Georgian worker from between 2000 and 2007. Mr. Chairman, it's respectfully submitted that the massive influx of immigrants, both legal and illegal, has been demonstrably bad for the employment prospects of low-skilled Americans generally, black Americans particularly, especially black males, and continued failure to address this issue is not without profound and substantial cost to the average American worker. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Joining us in the audience tonight are 4 very brave Americans whose government failed them. Jamil's 17-year-old son was viciously murdered by an illegal immigrant gang member who had just been released from prison. Jamil Shore Jr. was an incredible young man with unlimited potential who was getting ready to go to college where he would have excelled as a great college quarterback. But he never got the chance.
Last night, President Trump honored the families of victims killed by illegal immigrants. Our next guest was invited by President Trump last night. Jamil Shaw Sr., his son killed by an illegal immigrant. He joins me now. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. We are so sorry for your loss. Can you please tell the viewer what happened to your son?
Yes, March the 2nd, which tomorrow is the anniversary, I guess you can call it anniversary. He was shot in the street like a dog by an illegal alien gangbanger who was on his 3rd gun charge, was just released from the LA County Jail that same day. And he, according to their gang code, he had to go out the same day and assault black people. So he found my son, shot him in the stomach, and while he was on his back, according to the coroner, with his hands up in the air, shot him through his hand, blew his fingers off, and shot him in the head and killed him right there on the same street he was born on.
Jamil, we're so sorry, you know, for your loss. This is just completely horrific and a disgrace, what is happening and what happened to you and your family. And again, we thank you for sharing that with us. President Trump says the media is ignoring victims of violence by illegal immigrants. Do you and your family feel that way?
Oh yeah, in LA they won't even mention when they commit crimes. You know, they shut me down. All the newspapers won't report on anything I do because they don't want people to know in the community there's people fighting for justice, and everybody's not a legal alien lover. You know, some people like Americans better. You know, and they feel that they can't really go after me because what I'm saying is true. It's all documented, so they just ignore me and hope I go away, but I won't.
Jamil, you know, Democrats last night audibly groaning, even booing President Trump's measure to protect victims of crimes like your family, crimes that are done by illegal immigrants. When you heard that last night, what the president said, and you heard the booing by Democrats to what the president was saying, what was your reaction?
Yeah, it hurts. It hurt my feelings, you know, especially when you see all the black caucus. They say they stand up for black people, and here there's a black kid not bothering nobody, no criminal history, 3-time MVP, Player of the Year, getting recruited from Stanford, Rutgers. All he had to do was stay alive, you know, and you hear people upset like I'm doing something like some kind of foreign thing that I'm doing. I ask them all the time, well, what would you do if a legal alien shot your loved one in the street like a dog? And they always understand where I'm coming from when they put their family members in that same spot. But to hear them booing like that is, you know, it's just disrespectful.
Jamil, has any Democrat stepped up and talked to you about this?
Oh, just tell me that I'm being used by the white man. Pretty much every politician in LA, I've been in Sacramento, Washington, D.C. I did everything, and, you know, I'm doing all I can do. And of course not. They accuse me of starting a race riot or accuse me of being a racist or I'm a sellout and stuff like that. I'm fighting for my son. I'm pissed off. Yeah. You know, we had plans. We had a whole life, and now it's all over because of legal aliens.
Jamil, what do you want to say to Democrats now?
What would you do? Like I ask them all the time, what would you do if it happened to you? Would you do something different than I'm doing, or would you do the same thing? And it's usually the same thing. They'll sugarcoat it and act like it's no big deal, but they know where I'm doing right, and they should be right along with me, especially the Black Caucus. Need to be ashamed of themselves. You know, a lot of them live in California, and they know what we're going through as black people in California. There's no more black communities and no more restaurants. All the schools are full of illegal aliens. You have to learn Spanish just to even go to school. You know, it's not fair. And they sit there and they watch and they do nothing. And then when somebody positive comes along, they just tear them down like they're the problem.
Jamil Shaw, Sr., thank you so much for your time. Again, we are so sorry for your loss, but what you're doing is a service to the country and for the country.
Thank you.
We thank you. Please come back on the show again soon, okay?
For sure. Thanks for the invite.
Sure.
Of course, you're for open borders, and Bernie Sanders said, no, that's a Koch brothers idea. They want the cheap labor. That was what his position used to be, but then, oh no, has to be for open borders because he's running as a Democrat. That is what hurts the working class, the low-wage workers, more than anything else. We're just going to keep dumping more low-wage workers on. I mean, a lot of them are coming for the welfare benefits now. As Milton Friedman said, you can't have a welfare state and open borders. And we're getting a lot of that now. Pre-1970 immigrants made more money, bought more houses than the people who already lived here. Post-1970 immigrants, vastly poorer than the people who already live here. Well, that's just competing for resources, both for government benefits and for jobs from our own poor people. How about we bring in people to compete with talk show hosts and senators and governors and Wall Street bankers. Then we'll see, how much compassion we have for the rest of the world. But Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want somebody to compete with him for his job. He wants to bring in people to compete for his landscaper's job. That is how Donald Trump cares about the people who are being hurt and have been left behind and ignored by both political parties for decades. Saying that illegal immigrants are the little guy, they're not our guys. Americans don't have a problem paying for our own poor, our own sick, our own injured. But the idea is we're like a family. We're all in this together.
Aren't you in favor of welfare reform?
And you say, but, but for the grace of God go I. Okay, but you don't get to, this isn't the entire world we're talking about. We're not turning America into, the universe's charity ward. We need to take care of our own. And that's what's hurting the little guy. The reason illegal immigrants say they're coming for family reunification is because that's what got you a free bus pass and a box lunch in the Obama era. Whatever they need to say to be moved into the interior of the country. But this idea that, you can't break up my family. Well, okay, all of you go back then. Look, as I just tried to explain, but again, it's like talking to the old Soviet woman who doesn't grasp the free market.
Name calling
is
super
isn't a
classy.
question of whether we take care of our poor. And I must say, immigration makes everything harder. And one of the biggest things it makes harder is the distribution of welfare. Look at all of the scams on welfare. Is that going to the poor? No, it's going to the Russians in Brighton Beach. It's going to the Cubans in Miami. It's going to the Arabs up in Michigan. One thing that immigrants, legal and illegal, really have quite a strong proclivity for that is not part of our Native American, even our Native American criminals, are massive financial frauds and government frauds. They don't consider themselves part of our kin, part of our family. It isn't that we're all in this together. America is like Disneyland to these criminals. It is ripping off all of these systems. So to say you want welfare to be distributed in a way that is useful, that helps people, that gives them, allows them to get work and jobs, is not being against helping the poor. It is being for helping the poor.
And many Americans believe they're competing for jobs with a growing number of undocumented immigrants. That's according to a Rasmussen report survey conducted just last August. The poll also showed a racial divide between whites and blacks, showing that most white people do believe immigrants are taking jobs away from them, while most black respondents disagreed. To discuss this, we're being joined now by Mr. Ted Hayes. He's a civil rights activist. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Hayes. So can I ask you about this? Do you agree or disagree with the poll? Do you think, do African Americans think that illegal immigrants take jobs away from them?
Absolutely. I don't know where this other person's getting their information from, but I'm on the ground out here in Los Angeles. We call LA Occupy Los Angeles because we have lost all of our rights. Essentially, black people in LA have been indemnified. We can't even go in the neighborhoods that were once black for fear of getting shot, beaten up, threatened, what have you. So, no, and it's not just about jobs, it's about housing, education, health care. It's about our 14th Amendment birthright that they're stealing from us. And I don't blame the people. I do not blame the people. I blame our government for failing to protect us according to the Constitution of the United States.
Well, do you agree with President Trump, then, that illegal immigration hurts black citizens more than it does other Americans?
Oh, there's no question about it. And not just in the physical realm of jobs and housing, health care, but it's the whole realm of our identity. For example, you've heard of anchorism, that is anchor babies, women that come to the country illegally and they have a baby and that child becomes a citizen. That is totally wrong. That belongs to the freed slaves.
Hold on, you're saying you're talking about anchor babies. I mean, I want to touch on that. So you are against the so-called anchor babies, the babies that were born in the United States, given our Constitution, a constitutional right that those children are American citizens. So you disagree with that law?
That is not true. They've twisted that. It's a custom. If you please take the time and you go to my website and you can study it, tedhayes.us. They have twisted the 14th Amendment to mean them. It is not. Read the Civil Rights Act of 1866, where it identifies slaves. That was who it's for. It's been a custom, and we're going to prove it real soon. It's unfortunate that these poor people have been lied to and deceived. It's like someone's stealing something from somebody else and giving it to you, and you did not know it was stolen until you find out later the real owner comes and says, hey, you have my property.
So you're saying that this is somehow that law was misinterpreted, and that
absolutely.
So you're saying the children that are born here, they to illegal immigrants should not be here.
They are what we call presumed citizens based on a custom that is not law, and it has to be rescinded at some point, because if not, we black people are going to be eliminated. We are already genocide in the minds of many people in this country. Whenever the issue of immigration, whether legal or illegal, comes up, you never hear them say, how does this affect black people? You're the first ones that's really brought us into the conversation, and I hope to be able to add more to this conversation as time goes on.
Now, I got to ask, Mr. Hayes, are you against immigration in general? Are you concerned about losing, like you said, jobs, losing housing, healthcare, education, political power, et cetera, to illegal immigrants? Are you against it in general?
I'm against illegal immigration, which I do not consider illegal immigration. I consider it an invasion, an occupation of our country, particularly in the inner cities, which are called so-called sanctuary cities. That is coming after us. It's an invasion. When it comes to legal immigration, sure, come to the front door. Article 1, Section 8 is for the willing immigrants. The 14th Amendment is for the people who were once slaves in this country, and it can't go on like that. Oh, one more point about that. A lot of immigrants come to this country, and they claim minority status, which therefore gives them civil rights access to something that does not belong to them. And we black folks, we chattel slave descendants, are being pushed further and further and further into the shadows of American society.
But Mr. Hayes, I think a lot of people...
So we need to straighten that up as well.
I would argue, though, Mr. Hayes, that a lot of people that say civil rights are human rights, don't you think a lot of people, whoever they are as people in the United States, deserve a certain level of dignity and rights?
Yes, they do deserve a level of dignity and right. They should not be tortured. They should not be harassed. But if I walk into your house, if I walk into Russia without proper authorities allowing me to do so, I will, and you punish me for that, I deserve what I get. If I break into your house and get caught, I deserve what I get. And it's unfortunate for these children that their parents are bringing them into this very volatile and dangerous situation.
Look, I'm not afraid of different cultures, right? I'm not afraid of people speaking Spanish. It doesn't get me emotional. It doesn't make me feel scared. And I know that there are some people who feel afraid of that happening. My parents are immigrants. You know, my dad was born in Syria. My mom was born in Armenia. I was born here in Los Angeles. And nothing makes me happier than seeing different cultural, different heritages all around me. And for some reason, there's this fear on the right in regard to different cultures. I know that you, Anne, have spoken extensively about, oh my God, English is no longer going to be the main language in the United States. That's not true. That's not true. And besides which, why does it make you so uncomfortable to hear people speak Spanish, right? And then you also refer to your own family members as settlers. Well, okay, so they got the luck of the draw and they were able to come into this country and settle without, people discriminating against them and stopping them from doing so. But who are we to say, oh, Mexicans can't come in because, as you say, you think they're peasants? I don't think they're peasants. I actually think that they enrich this country with their culture. So.
Three questions. First of all, this sneering mocking of Americans who suddenly wake up one day and find out no one is speaking English in their neighborhoods, I think is extremely elitist and snooty. I'm quite sure you all wouldn't like it if your kids came home from school and they sounded like Sarah Palin. I think that would be a cultural shock for you. Certainly in California, most of the neighborhoods that have gone all Hispanic are black neighborhoods, and not through casual movement. One of the ways our culture changes with immigration, both legal and illegal, is there is not a lot of tolerance, as much tolerance as Americans have. You have black gangs, or rather Hispanic gangs, going into the black neighborhoods, screaming epithets, throwing bottles at their houses. The LA Times has written this up extensively. So I think it's very sneering and mocking of you to be referring to mostly African American and other immigrant neighborhoods that suddenly aren't speaking English, and they're afraid of Spanish. No, they think that their kids shouldn't be turned away from a job at McDonald's because they don't speak Spanish. That was one witness's testimony in Congress, a black guy from Los Angeles. Settlers, why does it make a difference that you're a settler? No, it isn't that we just first come, first serve. No, it's that settlers created this country. It wasn't here.
African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded.